Hello, my friend. I'm Dr. William, and it's my pleasure to accompany you on this journey toward holistic health, especially when it comes to protecting our brain health after 60. As we step into our middle and later years, there's something almost all of us experience those moments of forgetting what we just heard or feeling slower, more absent-minded than we used to be. We often brush it off with a smile and say, well, it's just aging. Forgetfulness is normal. But the truth is, not always. Some of these seemingly harmless signs may actually be the brain's earliest whispers of cognitive decline. And if we can recognize them early, we have a golden window of opportunity to slow it down, even reverse some of its effects through healthy lifestyle habits and proper nutrition. In today's video, I'm going to share 7 early warning signs that your brain may be sending out. If we listen closely, they could help us protect our memory, our clarity, and most importantly, our independence in daily life. So how do we tell the difference between normal age-related forgetfulness and something more serious, and which signs should never be ignored? Let's dive into the details now. Please stay with me, you won't want to miss this. My friends, the first sign I want to talk about today is also one of the most common and most easily overlooked: forgetting things you just heard. It might be a recent appointment, someone reminded you of a phone conversation you just had, or even a simple request from a family member. Many older adults chuckle and say, I'm just getting old. It's normal to forget now and then. But here's the thing, and if that forgetfulness happens repeatedly, especially over very short periods of time, it may not be typical absent-mindedness. It could be the sign of something deeper going on inside the brain. Let me tell you a story I'll never forget. I once had a patient, Mr. Arthur, 68 years old. He worked as an accountant for nearly 30 years at a pharmaceutical company. He lived alone in the suburbs and had 2 children. His daughter told me Dad used to have an incredible memory. He could remember an entire string of numbers just by hearing it once. Then one day she brought him in to see me. Not for joint pain or high blood pressure, but because, in her words, Dad asked me the same question 3 times in just 10 minutes. When I asked Mr. Arthur more about it, he explained, she told me she'd take me to the eye doctor Saturday morning. I listened, nodded, and even said, all right, remind me Saturday. But 5 minutes later, I asked again, are you coming on Saturday? She looked at me and stayed quiet. When I asked a 3rd time, she finally said, Dad, you've already asked me that twice, and doctor, I swear to you, I didn't remember asking her at all, not even once. You see, inside our brain, there's a region called the hippocampus. It's responsible for processing and storing short-term memories before they become long-term ones. As we age, this region can be affected by inflammation, chronic stress, or even early stages of mild cognitive impairment, MCI. And when that happens, new information doesn't stick, or worse, it disappears almost immediately. The scary part. People often don't realize they're forgetting. That's when loved ones begin to notice. Let me help you tell the difference. Normal forgetfulness usually happens when you're distracted, like misplacing your keys because you were on the phone multitasking or thinking about something else. Abnormal memory loss happens even when you were paying full attention. You just heard something, you understood it, but a few minutes later, it's completely gone. And you repeat the same question even if it was already answered. This kind of forgetfulness doesn't just make communication harder. It affects quality of life. It can cause family tension, make older adults feel insecure or ashamed, and lead to social withdrawal and a loss of independence. And most importantly, it may be one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease, which is becoming increasingly common in people over 60 in the US and worldwide. So if you or a loved one find yourselves repeating the same questions within a few minutes, if you often forget things you just heard even though you were alert at the time, please don't brush it off and don't blame yourself. This isn't a weakness, it's your body saying, take care of your brain. I need your attention. Let's start with small habit. Take regular notes. Say new information out loud to help it stick. Stay focused during conversations. And if possible, visit a memory clinic or neurologist for a full assessment. Mr. Arthur's story isn't rare. Every week I meet patients going through the same thing. But the good news, catching it early means we can often slow down the progression and help people stay sharp, independent, and joyful living life fully with their children and grandchildren. If you recognize this sign in yourself, don't hesitate to share in the comments below. Your story could help someone else feel less alone. Now let's move on to the second sign, which is subtle but incredibly important: struggling to find the right words when speaking. Not long ago, I met a lovely patient, Mrs. Ellen, 71 years old. She came in with her husband, Mr. Harold, who sat quietly with concern in his eyes. I asked Mrs. Ellen how she was doing, and she answered very slowly. I, I'm doing okay, doctor. It's just that lately I've been, um, I don't know what it's called anymore. That thing you use to cut the cake. I asked gently, do you mean a knife? She smiled shyly. Yes, yes, a knife. I forgot that word. Her husband, Adam, she used to speak so clearly. But lately she'll be talking and then suddenly stop because she can't remember the word she wants to say. This is a condition we call anomic aphasia or word-finding difficulty. It often appears in the early stages of cognitive decline or dementia. The person knows exactly what the object is. They can see it clearly in their mind. They understand how it works. But when they try to say its name, the word just doesn't come out or takes a long time to retrieve. Let me explain the difference from normal pauses in speech. If you occasionally forget a word, then remember it a few seconds later, that's likely just fatigue or distraction. But if this becomes frequent, if you find yourself constantly stopping mid-sentence, replacing words with that thing, what do you call it, the thing for cutting cake, then it's time to take notice. Because this isn't just forgetfulness, it's a disruption in how the brain translates thought into language. Here is the English translation of the next section of your script, preserving the emotional storytelling tone, and Dr. William Hart's compassionate voice. Having trouble finding the right words doesn't just make conversations awkward. It can also cause the person experiencing it to withdraw, avoid speaking, and fear being seen as slow or forgetful. Little by little, they begin to avoid conversations altogether. They lose confidence and their emotional state can shift into anxiety, even quiet depression, which in turn accelerates cognitive decline. So if you or someone you love frequently struggle to recall even simple words, start using vague fillers like this thing or that thing, even though they once had a rich vocabulary. Begin speaking more slowly out of hesitation or self-doubt. Then it may be time for an early evaluation of language and memory to begin the right kind of cognitive therapy or even support through nutrition and brain training. That hesitation in speech, that feeling of the word is right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't say it. It's something many of my patients aged 60 to 75 have shared with me. And recognizing these small changes early on is often the biggest step in preserving memory and mental clarity. If you've ever experienced that sensation or know someone who has, please share your story in the comments below. I, Dr. William, will be here to listen and respond with the deepest understanding. Now let's move on to another sign that is often overlooked or seen as just a normal part of aging. Confusion about time or even forgetting where you are. I still remember a patient from years ago, Mr. George, now 74, living in Michigan. A kind gentleman. He had a daily habit of walking around his neighborhood every morning. He was in good health, no high blood pressure, no diabetes. But one day his son David brought him in after something happened that left the whole family feeling uneasy. David told me, "Doctor, my dad takes his morning walk every day, same route, same time. But last week I was at work when a neighbor called me saying they saw him sitting on a park bench nearly 2 kilometers from home. When I got there, he looked confused and said he didn't know how he ended up there. Said he'd been walking and then suddenly couldn't remember the way back. I gently asked Mr. George, do you often get lost or confused about where you are? He paused and said slowly, no, not usually. But that morning I stepped outside and everything just felt strange. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Now, confusing the days of the week or forgetting a date can certainly happen when we're tired, sleep-deprived, or under stress. But when this kind of disorientation becomes frequent, especially when paired with a sense of being lost, that is a very important warning sign. When memory begins to fade, the brain struggles more and more with two key functions. Time orientation, knowing what day it is, what month, what year. Spatial orientation, knowing where you are, where you're going, and why you're there. These abilities rely on areas of the brain like the temporal lobe and parietal lobe, which help us navigate space and track time. And when these areas begin to weaken, we see signs like Mr. George's moment of being lost. Here is the English translation of the rest of your script, keeping the warm storytelling tone and emotional nuance of Dr. William Hart's voice. Some common signs to look out for. Not remembering what day it is, what date, or even what season of the year. Getting confused in familiar places, like going to the market and not remembering how to get home. Not knowing why you're at a certain location. Mixing up the past and present, thinking you are still in your 30s, or calling your grandchild by your child's name. These are early signs of dementia, especially Alzheimer's disease. In the beginning, people often hide it well, acting normal in front of family. But deep down, they may feel lost, disoriented, and this can be very dangerous, especially for those who live alone. I once treated a patient who went missing for several hours. He had gone to a nearby store he'd visited for years, and then simply couldn't remember how to get home. It's not just a safety issue. These incidents create deep anxiety and seriously impact one's quality of life. If you or a loved one frequently forget what day of the week it is, often lose track of time or appointments, feel disoriented even in familiar surroundings, repeatedly ask, "What day is it today?" or "Why am I here?" then this is more than just ordinary forgetfulness. It may be an early warning sign that your brain is struggling with time and spatial orientation, and it's time to seek help and support. Early cognitive screening, guided screening, combined with memory exercises, spatial orientation training, and daily habit tracking, can help slow down the progression and preserve confidence and independence. Because no matter our age, the ability to know where we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it is part of what makes us ourselves. If you've ever had a loved one get lost or constantly mix up their daily schedule, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Another very common sign is when older adults repeat the same story multiple times in a short period without realizing they have already told it. A few months ago, I met a young woman named Emily. She brought in her grandmother, Mrs. Mary, age 76. Emily spoke gently, though with a hint of concern. "Doctor, we don't think Grandma's sick. She's still sharp. She cooks, reads, video calls her grandkids. But recently, she keeps telling the same story over and over, sometimes 3 times in a single meal, and she doesn't seem to realize it." I asked, "What story is it?" She smiled. "It's the one where she met Elvis Presley on the street when she was young. Every time we come over, she tells it again, sometimes 3 times during dinner." This is a classic sign of short-term memory impairment. The brain either fails to record new information or quickly erases what was just stored. Old memories like something from youth remain vivid, but recent memory, like "I just told this story 10 minutes ago," is not retained. The repetition isn't intentional. The person genuinely doesn't remember saying it before. Many family members, especially younger ones, might think, "Oh, Grandpa's just nostalgic. He likes telling his favorite stories." But when the same story or question is repeated within minutes multiple times a day, that's a very important signal. You may notice that the person repeats an old story even when gently reminded they've already told it. Asks the same question over and over within a short time, is unaware they are repeating themselves. If this sounds familiar, it may be time to start tracking how often the repetition happens. Write it down each day. Scheduling a memory screening, a simple test, or visit to a neurologist can help. Using memory aids, notebooks, gentle verbal cues, or memory games to train short-term recall. There's nothing wrong with retelling cherished memories. It's how older adults bond with family. But when the same story is repeated several times within just a few hours, and the speaker doesn't remember saying it, that's a subtle but powerful signal from the brain that should not be ignored. My dear friends, one more sign that often gets overlooked but is very telling is this: placing objects in odd or illogical places and then having no memory of doing so. I once had a patient, Mr. Henry, age 72. One day his wife found his cell phone in the freezer and the TV remote in the bathroom sink. When asked about it, he just laughed and said, "I have no idea how that happened. I must have forgotten." This is a sign of short-term memory failure and declining organizational thinking. Unlike ordinary forgetfulness, where we misplace something because we were distracted, in this case, the person doesn't remember handling the object at all, can't explain the action, and usually can't retrace their steps to find it. If you or someone you care for often misplaces wallets, glasses, or keys in strange places, cannot remember where an item was last put, frequently needs help from others to find lost items, then it may be time to keep a routine and write down where things go. Use designated trays or containers for essentials, and if needed, get a memory evaluation as soon as possible. Because memory is not just about recall, it's part of our personality. It connects our past, our present, and our future. Memory decline doesn't happen overnight, but if we ignore the signs, it can slowly take away clarity, confidence, and independence. If out of the 5 signs I've shared today, you or a loved one recognize 2 or more, please take it seriously. Begin tracking what's happening, and if possible, visit a neurologist or memory specialist for an early evaluation. Catching it early gives us a chance to intervene with nutrition, brain exercises, and healthy daily habits so we can hold on to a bright memory, a resilient mind, and a graceful aging journey. Which of these signs concerns you the most? Do you have a family member showing any of these signs? Please share your story in the comments below. I read every message and truly value your openness. I'm Dr. William, and I wish you clarity, strength, and the joy of living each moment fully with the ones you love. See you in the next video.